At 8 p.m, the rain started again just as hard. Claire had fed Oceane potato waffles and baked beans, and Oceane was still watching cartoons on TV in her pyjamas. Alexander was in his cot under a mosquito net, asleep. His bedroom was at the back of the house, the door ajar. They'd been preparing for a quiet evening when the rain started up again. Josephine was there, in her room next to the kitchen, and she was also watching TV, and Susie was inside under the coffee table moaning with unease at the rain. The Christmas tree, winking with light, stood in the corner like a lighthouse of good cheer. All their wrapped presents were under it. Half an hour ticked past. The rain was a solid wall of water falling from the sky, and he began to fret. The ground around them was already sodden from the afternoon's downpour. There was a storm drain behind the house already full of churned-up water. His neighbour rang him, also worried. His neighbour's house was even closer to the foot of the hill with no trees. "We're sitting ducks," Gavin said on the phone. "Are you okay?" "Not really, no. My garden's like a pond." The rain was like a war. He put on gumboots and went outside and stood on the porch, and he watched. Oh, fuck. Rumbles in the sky, tearing sounds, and the clatter of an army marching, soldiers roaring. Trinidadians live with the rainy season. This happens every year. Half a dozen or so downpours this violent, between June and December. Every year his neighbours call him, especially the last few seasons. He shouldn't worry. This will be okay. It's not unusual. He put on a waterproof jacket and he dragged a kitchen chair out into the sodden garden, and he climbed onto the chair and he peered over his garden wall. Oh, God. Brown water, a river now raging down the denuded hill, water spraying and buffeting off his neighbour's wall. The street outside his house was a swollen river of brown. The flood water was rising up the thin garden walls of his house. He jumped off the chair and he went back inside and he poured himself a rum. And he knocked it back, and then he poured another one and he knocked that back too. Claire was sitting with Oceane on the sofa. She didn't want to look over the garden wall. She sat calm and her face was composed. At one point she got up and she went to the back room to peer in at Alexander, and then she returned and sat down again. "He's okay. Best we don't wake him," she said. Gavin guessed she was weighing things up, coping. Claire always knew nothing bad would ever happen to her or those she loved, that God was on her side. She had had a tranquil and blessed life until that night. But he was fraught, and his own fear was rising. The world outside was turning to water. Claire sat on the sofa as he paced the porch. She was holding her daughter's hand. And then another neighbour rang, and it was the same story. "Shit, man," said Jeremy from across the road. His father was living with them. His father, who was blind and autistic. "My father's getting upset."